Hi everyone, welcome back to EndisEnglishNotes.com, where today we're going to look at the final scene from Romeo and Juliet, which is Act 5, Scene 3. So in the last scene we saw Friar Lawrence heading off to Juliet's tomb with a crowbar. We also know that Romeo is on his way to the tomb with the poison that he has acquired from the apothecary. Okay, so this is the final scene in the play, in the tragic tale of Romeo and Juliet. So all points were leading to this final dramatic scene. Okay, so the first person we meet is Paris. Okay, so Paris and his page are at Juliet's grave, where he is going to lay flowers outside her tomb. He tells us he will water the flowers every day. So again, with Paris, you see a very like Romeo in terms of the love he had for Juliet. It's quite forward and it's quite emotional. It's rash, it's overly emotional. Okay, so he didn't know Juliet for very long, but he says he's going to water her flowers every day. Paris gets a call from his page to tell him that someone is coming, and he goes off to the side to see who it is. Romeo and Balthazar enter with a crowbar and a pickaxe, and Romeo hands Balthazar a letter which he is to give to his father, explaining everything that has happened. He warns Balthazar not to interrupt his plan, or he will tear his limbs off one by one. The time and my intents are savage wild, more fierce and more inexorable far than empty tigers or the roaring sea. So Romeo tells Balthazar that he's more ferocious than tigers who are hungry or the roaring sea. So basically his emotions cannot be contained at this point. His actions can't be contained. He's going to behave, or he's going to act the way he is, and no one's going to stop him. Now, it also has to be pointed out that at this point in the play, Paris thinks that Romeo is coming to desecrate the tomb of Juliet. Again, the dramatic irony, he isn't aware that Romeo was in fact married to Juliet. So Romeo and Paris at the tomb. Balthazar, sensing that Romeo's intentions are not good, decides to stay to see what will happen. Romeo continues with the personification of death, which we saw from the Capulets when they found out that Juliet was dead. Addressing the tomb, he says, Thou detestable maw, thou womb of death, gorged with the dearest morsel of the earth. So he's personified death as someone who has eaten Juliet, and who he describes Juliet as the dearest morsel of the earth. So she's the most precious thing on earth, and that death has eaten her. Seeing Romeo attempt to break open the tomb, Paris, hiding in the bushes, is horrified as he thinks that it is a Montague there to desecrate the tomb of the Capulets. Paris comes out of hiding and challenges Romeo to a duel, but Romeo tries to warn him off, saying the only person he wants to hurt is himself. By heaven, I love thee better than myself, for I have come hither armed against myself. So basically, I actually love you more than I love myself. I'm here armed against myself. So he's telling him like he intends to kill himself. So Romeo and Paris fight. Paris does not believe Romeo insists that he must be arrested for what he is about to do. Instead, Romeo fights with Paris, eventually killing him. Paris' last words are, "Oh, I am slain. If thou be merciful, open the tomb. Lay me with Juliet." So his dying wish is to be laid with Juliet. Romeo sees that the man is Paris, a cousin of Mercutio's, and he remembers that Juliet was to be married to him. He agrees to Paris' final wish and drags him into the tomb as he goes in search of Juliet. Romeo sees Juliet and says that death may have taken her life, but it hasn't touched her beauty. Death, that hath sucked the honey of thy breath, hath had no power yet upon thy beauty, means that death hasn't destroyed any of her beauty. Now, the irony here is that she's not actually dead. That's why death has not taken hold and changed her appearance. He goes on to say that death is a monster that stole Juliet to be his mistress. Romeo takes the potion and dies. Okay, so Romeo takes the potion and dies. Okay, Friar Lawrence arrives at the tomb, like literally seconds after Romeo takes the vial of poison. Friar Lawrence enters. Again, bad luck, bad timing, all of these things combined lead to Romeo's downfall. The friar arrives and Balthazar tells them that Romeo is in the tomb. The friar goes off alone to the tomb, predicting that something awful is going to happen. He sees the blood and the swords and then the bodies of Paris and Romeo just as Juliet is waking up. So I suppose the tragedy here is that Romeo died a pointless death because just after he takes the poison, Juliet wakes up. Juliet asks for Romeo, but the friar tells her that a greater power has thwarted their plans. A greater power than we can contradict hath thwarted our intent. So basically, something above, whether it be God, whether it be fate, whether it be fortune, whatever it is, it has thwarted our plans. It has went against us. The friar tells her he will find a place for her in the nuns. So he tells Juliet that in order to get over all of this and to get away from everything, that he's going to sign her up for the nuns, and basically it will be a place for her to go. Juliet tells the friar to leave without her. She then tries to kiss Romeo's lips to see if there's any poison left to kill her. Okay, so she can't. The poison obviously doesn't work. Kissing him is not. That didn't work. So she spots the dagger. After failing to poison herself with a kiss, Juliet sees the dagger by Romeo's waist. She takes it and tells it that her body will be its sheath. She then stabs herself. Now, if you think about the foreshadowing throughout, she often mentioned stabbing herself or killing herself. So that foreshadowing has come to pass. The prince enters to find a scene with 3 dead bodies. Capulet and Lady Capulet enter in hysterics, saying that people are crying for Romeo, for Juliet, and for Paris. They are on the way to the tomb to see what happened. Montague arrives to say that his wife has died from a broken heart caused by Romeo's banishment from Verona. So there, the death count just keeps rising. So Lady Montague is now dead as well. He is then told that Romeo is dead, and he chastises his son, saying, "O thou untaught, what manners is this to press before thy father to a grave?" He said it is unmannerly for his son to go to his grave before his father. So the prince seeks answers. Okay, this is the same Prince Esculus that came in the very first scene and said that anyone who disrupted the peace would be sentenced to death. So he's there to find out now what happened. The prince, wanting to get to the bottom of the mystery surrounding the death, asks Friar Lawrence to explain what has happened. The friar explains to everyone that Romeo and Juliet were married in secret. He then goes on to say that Romeo killed Tybalt and was banished, and that the Capulets mistook her grieving for Romeo as mourning for Tybalt, and that they arranged a marriage with Paris to cheer her up. He tells them that Juliet was threatening to kill herself rather than marry Paris, so he came up with this plan, which was foiled by fate. Okay, foiled means ruined. It was ruined by fate. So the letter not getting to Friar John in time was extremely unlucky, and it was couldn't have predicted that would happen. He was then seconds too late to stop Romeo taking his life, and then Juliet woke up just as Romeo had taken his life. So everything, all the luck had all their luck was out at this point, and his point here is that fate decided that this should happen. And if you remember Romeo's premonition, I think it was just before the ball, and he said that something would happen tonight that would result in his death, and a chain of events would be set in motion, and again it came to pass. He tells them the events of the night with Paris and Romeo dead when he arrived, and that Juliet woke up and killed herself when she saw Romeo. The friar says he is willing to take his punishment for his role in the whole debacle. Okay, the prince sees Romeo's letter. Balthazar, while explaining his role in the night's proceedings, gives a letter to the prince that Romeo had wanted delivered to his father. Paris's page also explains what Paris was doing at the tomb. The prince, reading the letter from Romeo, summonses both Capulet and Montague and chastises them for this feud that has caused the deaths of so many. Where be these enemies, Capulet, Montague? See what a scourge is laid upon your hit. So basically, do you see what you have done? All these people are dead over some stupid feud that you have that you know nothing about, or that you've forgotten about at this point. The prince also tells them he has now lost 2 family members as a result of this feud, and that everyone is lost. So Paris was a cousin, and Mercutio was also a cousin of the prince. So he's lost heavily personally in this, and he wants to see it resolved. Capulet and Montague hold hands and declare that they will raise statues of both Romeo and Juliet as a way to bury their rivalry. Now, that holding hands is very symbolic at the end. It shows that they're united okay, and that they've got over their feud. The play ends with the prince saying, "For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo." So again, at the end, and I suppose it seems really pointless and futile, but I think what Shakespeare, what he may have been showing here is that sometimes we do stupid things and it can result in bad things, like Montague and Capulet. So a stupid feud that they both kept going because of their pride, and they ended up losing a lot because of it. They lost a son and a daughter over it. And Shakespeare's probably highlighting just how ridiculous sometimes humans do behave, and we all know people who behave in these kinds of ways. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the play and the end of the revision videos. So again, if you like the video, please hit like and please subscribe for poetry videos, drama videos and fiction videos.